A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. We're coming to you live from Kaduna. KADINVEST 7.0 is holding this month, and that is why we are here. I am Chamberlain, so glad you could join us today.
Indeed. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Just to remind you, it's October 13th, and it's 2020, and it's a Thursday morning. Amaya Bakinde, good morning and welcome.
2022.
2022, yes, whatever.
He's trying to take us back in time.
No, just looking forward. And I'm also looking forward to the call of the ASUU strike.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to that as well.
I think they said that they used the word ASUU was going to call off the strike soon. But
Soon
in a matter of
always,
days.
Soon is always a very long.
It's been over 108-something days.
But unlike the language that has shaped and colored the ASUU strike since February, this signals some form of hope that one could hang on to. But the difference is, why is it coming after the intervention of the House of Representatives and after that court order ordering them to resume, pending which they would, hear their appeal? So has ASUU eaten the humble pie, even though it seems to have had a good case from the beginning?
I wouldn't call it a humble pie thing. I'll call it compromise on either side. Because at the end of the day, it's public schools that are in jeopardy right here. Virtually every governor today went through public school. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And most of the people in the National Assembly, state houses of assembly went to public schools as well. They may have had some trips outside the country for some other further, education. But if they all got that, then history behoves on them to ensure that public schools work, not just for those who are alive now, but for those who are coming after us. Public schools in many other climes that these leaders of ours go to, that's their private schools.
Yes, it's not exactly good because both parties have got huge blames in this matter.
Absolutely.
Both have not handled it properly. But of course, how could we be on strike for this month? For 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8? How? How can a nation run this way? So, of course, you'll always have huge knocks for the government because they should have been the bigger people to ensure that this is sorted. While, of course, many expect ASUU to shift grounds, but we're just hoping that that happens sooner rather than later. Well, that said, let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies. We're starting with Daily Trust this morning. And you may have heard this hush-hush tones, but now it's on the front page of Daily Trust, and this got to do with the forthcoming general elections. Look at that. The big lead on the front page here today, 4 months to elections. Plots to remove INEC chair, stop beavers, raise dust. Oh boy, wonders never cease, does it? Look at the right there. Governors, lawmakers, others fingered. Use of beavers, irreversible. INEC. CSO's fault moves. Lawsuits put Yakubu Commission on the spot.
Well, what Festus Opeo will tell you about that one is they're not new to lawsuits. In fact, today we said, look, the piles of lawsuits that they have to deal with is enough to keep them from doing anything. But hey.
Well, these allegations are new, so...
Yeah, but I don't know how... Because sometimes you hear this kind of narratives and you wonder, wait a minute, people are actually thinking about this one. But anything could happen with this kind of scenario here now. So who's afraid of beavers? Is it beavers that's giving them a lot of headache? In fact, I think we should make it a lot tighter and tougher for anyone to rig elections. In fact, we should improve collation of results so that we don't need to wait that long, many hours before the results are announced. Election should be won and lost right there at the polling unit, right there, and that is the way it should be moving forward. So if anybody is thinking about this, they know what to expect in terms of from the people.
Exactly.
It's about perish the thoughts.
Yeah. So while beavers could resolve these issues when they really become issues, while courts, the retinue of lawyers from INEC can resolve this when they get to the court, but the explanation about who's afraid of beavers, quoting your words, INEC is yet to explain that.
I think it's the question of who's afraid of the ballot box.
They've always been afraid of ballot box.
Okay, so from Daily Trust newspaper this morning, let's go to This Nigeria. And This Nigeria has a very interesting lead. Well, we've been asking questions about this since about today's Thursday, Tuesday, when the story broke. And This Nigeria chooses to lead with it. This Nigeria newspaper. Yes, indeed. So the big lead goes this way. Rise in oil theft. Reps to probe security over burnt vessel. The rider, there's just one rider. Query why evidence for prosecution of perpetrators was destroyed by operatives. And that's, a curious one. You arrest the perpetrators of oil theft and then you burn the vessel. So the House of Reps...
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Do we have a library of probe reports?
Well, definitely we do. But, with these ones, there are questions to everybody. If we say we're trying to stop this and ensure we get our crude back, now you have the crude right there in front of you. What do?
You burn it. And, fingers have been pointing the way of security operatives since this climb down on oil theft began. So the security operatives ought to be answering questions rather than burning evidence.
I asked that question.
Pollution in the area.
Exactly, which is the government has been talking about for about 4 years now. I asked, the reason I asked the question is we had a conversation with one petroleum engineer, I think it was on Monday. You asked him, do you have any hopes that anything is going to come out of this? You remember Bukola what he said? He said no. So again, that's why I'm asking. If we have a library, let's look at, and Chamberlain, you often say, I'm going to quote you all the time on this. You know what someone would do, that what someone has done before. So how successful or productive have probes and probe reports been over the years? That's not to say it's not useful. The question is, what do we do with them? And
we have to ask them a lot more questions than is already being asked at the moment. So
absolutely.
You can't just do these kind of things unless somebody or some people are trying to cover up something. That's the only reason many people think that's why they burn it, to hide something.
Well, no, that's clearly it would be the allegation, but hey. Nigerian News Direct is next, and what do you have on the front page? It's about this. 2022 priority projects. FEC approves 16.3 billion naira for aviation security procurements. The story you'll find on page 23 of the paper this morning has two riders. As council mulls local assembling, manufacturing of heavy-duty firefighter aviation trucks. OAU Teaching Hospital gets 592 million naira approval for procurement of MRI diagnostic machine. Talking about aviation, was it a rumor I heard that said that we'll be producing aircrafts in this country sometime soon? Must have been a rumor.
But, well, if it was not a rumor, then maybe it has become a rumor now. See the smile on Chamberlain's face.
How do rumors get started? That's the only song that comes to my mind now. Unfortunately, we can't play it. Because some of these things, you need to just calm your nerves down, because some things can put you in dire straits if you think too much about the problems of this country, I tell you. Oh boy. So let's take a look at leadership newspaper next. That is at ICANN conference, presidential candidates fault open grazing, endorse state police. Well, guys, speaking about state police, I think all governors give us the impression that they're on the same page now.
Yes.
Most recently, it was the northern colleagues of the southern counterparts also did say, well, yes, it's about time. And you thought the natural progression would have been, okay, so since they all agree, they have their members who they all have that meeting in the National Assembly. So why don't they just all have that conversation, and then the next thing is, okay,
legislation.
Yeah, at the National Assembly. So since they all agree about state police, shall we then go ahead and give the people state police, since the governors and everybody has agreed? So is it just a political agreement? If not, why did they need to announce that they have all agreed on state police?
Let me shock you. We got this information from, someone who said, look, the same as for state police, so it is for local government autonomy as well. There are those who say that when, state governors are in office, they loathe the idea of local government autonomy. But when they get out of government house, get into the National Assembly or somewhere, they all of a sudden say, oh, I regret not giving it a sanction. So please, in order not to regret it, can we just have that for now?
Okay, well
it's a conversation that they ought to have, all governors ought to have with the president. And we all know, the president's disposition towards state police. Well, so the question is, who would have the balls, to be able to hold that, talk about the elephant in the room with the president at that all-important security meeting? That
will come across as though the president is spoon-feeding them.
Absolutely.
Or telling them what to do. There are different arms of government. And we know that they've passed certain bills only waiting for the president to assent to it. So if they want to prove to us that they are not rubber-stamped National Assembly, pass the law. Once you pass the law, wait for the assent to the president.
Can we just agree that we're a federal government and consequently the tenets of federalism should play out? Maybe that will put pay to all.
Well, let's see if they will even consider it after the states have agreed on it. That should be the first step. Look at the riders.
There's no consensus on federalism
yet,
Ayo.
All right, but the riders here says, Obi says corruption easy to tame. Atiku insists on restructuring private sector-driven economy. Showore declares 2023 budget illegal. Northern others to engage Atiku, Tinubu, Obi, address Wike's grievances for peace to reign. Wike tells PDP. So that is it with leadership today. All right.
And lastly, very quickly, let's take a look at the Daily Times. Just one headline: MDA's risk forfeiting 2023 budgets. That's attributed to the Senate, and it's over the service-wide vote issue. The riders provide more insight. Hammer may fall on Galaxy backbone, Interior Ministry, State House, Budget Office, others, as Red Chamber begins probe of 252 beneficiary agencies over 5 trillion naira. Yes, you heard it, 5 trillion naira service-wide votes.
Did I hear the word probe again?
Yeah, you heard it.
They have to do those things. I mean, at least it's I guess they want to be seen to be doing some of these things, but we then need to put the pressure and ask the questions to ensure that they do or take the very next steps and not
after
just
the probes
at that stage of just the probes. So I guess those are some of the key issues that we need to look at, hopefully.
And that's it with the paper review this morning.
Okay, so there you go. That highlights, that is it when you look at some of the dailies. But don't forget, you can always come to
Kaduna, one of Nigeria's leading states in most agricultural products such as maize, ginger, sorghum, tomatoes, as well as home to many textile industries, although some have been moribund. Despite security challenges bedeviling the state, it remains one of investors' destinations following the conducive business environment under the El-Rufai-led administration. This is evident in the 4.3 billion naira worth of investment attracted into the state in the steel, agro-processing, pharmaceuticals and manufacturing sectors. Which is why this meeting by the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, KADIPA, with business community is a platform for investors and the state government to brainstorm and further upscaling the state's investment climate.
Kaduna State is the very first in the country to experience this best-in-class technology in using unmanned aerial drones to deliver health commodities to hard-to-reach areas. Just on the 3rd of June, His Excellency launched our distribution center, which is located in Pambegwa, Kubau local government in Kaduna State. On entry into Kaduna State, through Kadipa.
According to the state government, inflow of investment has seen a rise in the internally generated revenue, a good reason to sustain the tempo.
We have embraced digital technology, and we are bringing up young ones to key into the growing digital economy of the state. This is important for us because we are targeting a knowledge-based economy driven by the power of the internet. It is worth noting that under the visionary leadership of His Excellency, Malam Nasir Ahmad El-Rufai, Kaduna State has stayed true to times, running what is today adjudged the finest form of open digital governance.
This meeting also examines perception of the state government's tax system to aid investors make informed decisions as it prepares for KADINVEST 7.0.
Developers that are speculators, we know them very well. If you are intending for whatever purpose, go through KADINVEST. It's a one-stop shop. Go through them, they will take you through the process. And then there are milestones, even when the land is given to you. Read the papers. People shot themselves on their legs.
These investments are coming out mostly agricultural based, especially across the layouts in the zones that we've created, the Green Agro-Allied Industrial Zone / the SAPZ and the Green Economic Zone as well. So, we just passed the bill of the Kaduna Enterprise Development Agency. This is a commitment from the state government showing that we're now very serious about MSMEs in the state. Whoever approaches KADIPA will be able to liaise with the relevant MDA, that's KADEDA, and link them with the MSMEs, ensure that the MSMEs are heard, ensure that they have the clusters and the common facilities that they will share to expand their businesses, access to finance as well. KADIPA will continue to support that.
With rising inflation and dwindling oil prices in the global market, the Kaduna State government believes the 5-year state development plan from 2021 to 2025 will reposition the state to a knowledge-based economy.
Sunrise Didi, welcome to live from Kaduna, where KADINVEST 7.0 is holding. And as you see in that welcome slide, we've got Khalil, who is the Executive Secretary of KADIPA. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain and the team. Thank you.
Yeah, this is 7.0. So you must be excited about this, definitely. So what is it with this KADINVEST? What's different about this one?
Lord Chamberlain, first of all, we've continued to innovate. As you're aware, last year we said that we're going to turn into a knowledge-based economy in Kaduna State. What we've done this year is, first of all, we've done what's known as, the metaverse. This Economic and Investment Summit will be the first Economic and Investment Summit of a sub-national in Nigerian history that will be broadcasted on the metaverse. Metaverse is a virtual reality component of, the internet and so on. And then we've done what's known as augmented reality cards. You put your phone on the tag itself, click on the 3D image, it comes out, click on the program of events, you see more information and so on. So we've innovated as far as the virtual component is concerned. And then what we've done is, of course, the summit itself, we've expanded it for, an extra day. So we have one day with a business expo, where we go into details across 4 different sectors: agriculture, technology, solid minerals, and infrastructure. We're going to go into in-depth discussions and so on. That will hold for about a day. This is just to have an intimate discussion between the state government and investors alike. Second day will just be commissionings, about 8 commissionings and so. And then the third day will be the main summit itself, and then we close with a gala night.
Let me ask, Chamberlain, before you continue. If you would do a recap, you've been in the saddle for 4 years now, but You've been in the system all the while. What are the things that you would say have been discovered or uncovered over the past 7 years that helped to bring us to where we are today?
First of all, I think it's visionary leadership at the very top, of His Excellency Governor Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Without that, you wouldn't be able to have all these policies and governance initiatives at the bottom. And then it gives a lot of confidence to investors. The political will is there. It's not just about the eloquence of speech, it's about the eloquence of action itself. So His Excellency has demonstrated that. He has put in a great team. The team itself has gone on to implement all these policies and initiatives we've discussed. I think from the first KADINVEST, when people were talking about, we're going to bring in an OLAM and so on, a lot of people were like, this is impossible, none of that is going to happen. Today we've done like about 3, 4, 5 OLAMs and counting. So people have seen the action on ground, and I think that's what has really changed everything we've done for the past 7 years.
That's not to say that there haven't been some risks that have been overcome over time,
Absolutely.
Challenges that investors would naturally be wary of.
Absolutely, a lot. The usual power, policies itself, security, and the rest. Risks are meant to be taken. We've taken a lot of risks as a state government. Even me being the head of an agency is a very big risk that the governor has taken. But it has panned out well. We've done quite a lot. We've achieved a lot, and I feel we'll do more even in the future.
You are here. I'm sorry, guys. You are here. So the risk is perhaps lower for you. Someone coming from Sweden to invest in Kaduna State with all of the news and everything that he said. You talked about power. Now there's also the issue of security. What are the assurances or safety nets for them?
Well, a lot. So like I mentioned, first of all, investors look at the political will itself. What is the political climate like? What is the leadership like? And then they begin to look at the policies in place. So what is your ease of doing business policies like? Have you automated, digitized? How easy is it for me to get my permits and my licenses? And then they look at things like power. What are the enabling infrastructure around where they're going to invest and so on. We've done quite a lot in terms of that. Anybody that has been around Kaduna for the past 7 years would attest to the transformation that we've seen. And then they begin to look at things like, security and so on, because people forget that people invest in Afghanistan and all these things, and it's just capex for them for security and so on. But we put those things in place and assure them. And, we've been having a lot of positive feedback.
When you spoke about those innovations that you've done, 6.0, COVID hit everybody hard, so things need to change.
Yeah.
And you spoke about the metaverse and the likes. First, will those be a regular feature? And who are you targeting? Because we know that's really slowly catching on here, the metaverse and the likes.
So, first of all, aside from the domestic investors, if you're really saying, look, Kaduna State is going to be marketed to the globe, you have to key into these global innovations. Everything we're doing here in Kaduna State is for us to become globally competitive. So if we're saying we're trying to become a knowledge-based economy, it's not just for you to be competitive in Nigeria. It's for us to be competitive globally, worldwide, compete with the Hong Kongs, compete with the Singapores, and so on. So, we've done a lot. This will be a basic feature for us. We've done it, we have done the trend setting, and we hope other states will follow.
Speaking of recaps, it's been said by His Excellency over the years that since KADINVEST began, the state has attracted more FDIs than DDIs. So if you look back now, with the recap, what are the gains that Kaduna State has recouped in terms of job creation, in terms of revenue, and all the other prospects?
A lot. The return on investment in holding these economic and investment summit has been quite tremendous and phenomenal to say the least. So with regards to IGR, I think from the first KADINVEST in about 2016, when this administration came on board in 2014, 2015, IGR was about, 13 billion, and now the last count in 2021 was about 52.8 billion. This is unprecedented in our history. Nobody has done this, and we feel, it has gone a long way in actually enabling us to provide the enabling infrastructure for these investments. So there's like a recursive loop where we're generating the income, the investments are coming in, doing more infrastructure and more, investments. Then with the likes of job creation, we have counted more than 75,000 jobs that have been created since the beginning of the administration and counting, because we haven't really sat down to do all the data capture and so on. And of course, impact to the community. We had a pre-summit event 2 days ago with concerning inclusive businesses. How much have these investors actually included the local communities around themselves? And we've seen a lot of investors doing well. So we say, poverty alleviation has been, achieved. job creation has been achieving a lot of impact with regards to IGR.
Yeah. And in terms of employment, I wonder what the terms and conditions are, with the investors who have come into Kaduna State in terms of protecting the interests of, citizens. His Excellency would rather have citizens that not indigents to protect their interests, their welfare, and all of that.
You see, so what we're doing going forward is to begin to actually enact policies for these investors to be able to employ local communities. Now, if you're an investor and you're very smart, you would have to take the local community because you don't want to go to war with the local community itself. You won't be able to operate, in a meaningful way. So what we're doing with this IBAN initiative, the inclusive business thing I mentioned, is if we accredit you and we say, look, Chamberlain Ventures, scores 100 out of 100. They have employed everybody in the local community. The next time they're going to invest or expand, they're going to get XYZ amount of waivers and incentives. This will encourage other investors to do the same. But it is in your interest as an investor to be able to employ the local community for them to be able to own the investments going forward. They'll be the ones to protect your investment in the long run.
You quoted 75,000. Are those figures direct jobs or indirect jobs? Because indirect jobs, are temporary, but direct jobs are the long-lasting that will have an effect on the economy.
So we're in the process of disaggregating this data, but we've counted 75,000 direct and indirect jobs as we speak.
Well, I'm assuming that since you said global Chamberlain Ventures, you're assuming that it's a foreign business.
And maybe on the metaverse.
But quick one. We heard you just before we came on for this conversation talk about micro, small, and medium enterprises. I'm personally passionate about that, and I'm assuming that that's part of the jobs accounted for in this 75,000 thing. The challenge for me is that of sustainability of these businesses. You know very well that and the average lifespan of a small business is 5 years if it is not well managed. Is there anything government is doing to help them sustain themselves?
You see, what we have discovered in Kaduna State is as follows. We created what's known as the Enterprise Development Agency. That's kind of like a SMED on a state level. That's on the one hand. This agency will be able to focus on these MSMEs, provide them with the necessary policy advocacy, support, financing, access to market, and the likes. What we've discovered is, these MSMEs need new markets. Like I mentioned about them being globally competitive or service the local communities. These big investors we're bringing in do serve as the market for these small-scale, MSMEs. Yep. So we've seen smallholder farmers as well. Every time these guys are cashing out, becoming millionaires, selling to the likes of Olam and the rest. So that's where we're at now, and I think a lot is being done to support them.
So what are you doing to assuage the fears of investors? 7.0 will be the last of this government. Yeah. What are they telling you, and how you're telling them all will be well?
Yeah, naturally investors did come to us, early on in the year to say, look, there's going to be a change of administration, political instability. What are we doing to key in? So His Excellency has been gracious enough to always sit with investors and reassure them of his successor. Sometimes he's in a meeting with him right by his side to say, look, this deal is going on this way, and then, Senator Obasani is right there, and he's reassuring them, like, look, once I take over, there's no issues. So I think it's so far so good. The investors are confident. We really don't have any issues there.
Let me quickly follow up on MSMEs. For the foreign direct investors, the state promises a lot of incentives, to help them stabilize in terms of land documentation, licensing. I wonder if tax holidays is included. But for the MSMEs, they're the backbone of the economy. Is there any similar incentive for them, to also be able to stabilize and, in line with Ayo's question, sustain those businesses?
Absolutely. Look, when you're doing reforms, right, essentially the reason why we're having so much success is you need to be a responsive government. So we hold the likes of all these quarterly businesses, social media, we've utilized a lot of that. All our policy initiatives do come from the MSMEs. So the fact that we're trying to domesticate the startup bill, we've done a ginger investment policy and strategy, all came from the MSMEs. This is not something that the big and large-scale investors are talking to us about. We're listening to the local investors right on ground because they're the ones that know the local problems. They're the ones that will be the ones to supply all these local raw materials to these big investors. So that's what we've done. We're continuing to do that. And then, these big investors you're talking about are, secondary to the idea of this MSME thing.
So what tax incentives are available for the MSMEs?
Tax incentives, it's on a case-by-case basis. It's at the discretion of the governor. So if, like we said now, we're trying to institutionalize these things, we've experimented over the years to say, look, if we make it uniform, we might be able to lose income. So it's a delicate balance. You want to increase IGR, you want to increase job creation, you want to do infrastructure. So over time, once you have experimented to see what kind of businesses, will qualify for these tax incentives. We then institutionalize it, create pass some laws and policies and see how it goes. But a lot of incentives for SMEs.
Well, I guess the governor will have a lot more to say on that, so don't worry. Let's shoot us all on that one. Khalil Nakrila is the Executive Secretary of KADINVEST. Thank you for coming in and all the best.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
All right, we will be back in a moment. Stay with us, basically. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're now joined by Tamar Nandul, who is the MD of Kaduna Market here at the KADINVEST, which is what we're talking about today. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today in the program. Good morning. So, what is it with the markets and KADINVEST?
Well, the Kaduna Market Development and Management Company is a state-owned enterprise. We're primarily involved in property development and facility management of commercial real estate. And we've been able to do a lot of what we've done so far as delivering on our projects like malls, trailer parks, mainly through PPPs. So we don't actually rely on appropriation in the budget. We have assets which we're able to leverage and attract investments.
How do you mean you don't rely on that? But at least that's the basis with which you do whatever you do, isn't it?
Yes, but not necessarily. So what we do is actually generate revenue. So we contribute to the state's revenue as opposed to collect. So in the past, since the company was incorporated in 1998, there's only been about 3 years where we've actually had to draw from the state budget. That was, of course, the takeoff grants, which the company received in 1998, but then also in 2019 and in 2021, when the company was recapitalized.
So you must have objectives, goals, and targets. What is it that you want to achieve with this?
Well, the company is saddled with a lot of responsibilities. So we have a major responsibility as far as His Excellency's urban renewal agenda. So we have, of course, to organize, to provide organized commercial hubs for economic activities. I think that, when you don't have organized commercial trading spaces, it can interfere with investment, even in road infrastructure, right? Because you have people walking on the sides of the street. So ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, is to provide safe and conducive commercial hubs in Kaduna State, and we're doing that not just in the metropolis, but also in local governments as well.
So how are the markets utilized? I'm assuming that people come to maybe subscribe for the markets or something. How do people connect?
So His Excellency's vision for this is actually an empowerment policy. So there are different kinds of markets. First of all, we're redeveloping existing markets. So when you have long, institutionalized markets, like, one of the easiest ones would be Kaswambachi, which we have in Kaduna State. It's not far away from here. It's a market that's existed for very many years, and there's a lot of trade there. The volume of trade is quite high. You have thousands of traders there, but the structure itself is just not... where it exists, it has deteriorated, and in a lot of cases, it doesn't even exist, right? It's just a field, and there are people trading there. So it's a very meticulous process of verifying the traders and knowing who our customers are, so that we can give them the right of first refusal. Where we have done this perfectly, I think, would be in the central market, where it's an organized market, quite all right, but then you have traders who are subject to a predatory gang of landlords, agents, and other kinds of middlemen. And so we had to do like a meticulous process of verifying them. We identified we had over 6,000 traders in the market. And then what we did was transfer ownership to the tenants in the shop. So you had people who were previously allocated on a temporary basis, but then would actually sell the shops off, are required to pay rent of about maybe 40,000 naira a year, but would actually charge their tenants as much as 500,000 per year. So what we did was verify the tenants in the shop, revoke the allocation to this allotee, who is usually like a political bigwig, and then transfer ownership to the tenant and also provide them a single-digit mortgage.
I'm assuming, sorry, yeah, I'm assuming that, there were so many guns pointed at you for that.
Of course, of course.
And what are some of the issues that they had, and, how was government able to meet them?
So, of course, people tried to make it political. People try to desensitize the traders. So it's a lot of making sure you're giving out the right information. But then I think ultimately value wins, right? So when the traders can see, initially they thought we were taking their shops away from them to reallocate to APC, members of the APC. But now that they can see that the shop actually has come back to them, they have a deed of sublease, they have a registered deed of sublease with CAGs, right? They can see now that that's not true. And so I think that has really allowed us, just giving value in return, allows us to put all of those...
I'm sorry, if I could just go back a bit before we proceed. Is this meant to change the conventional markets that we know? Are you trying to standardize all of them, such that the regular market person that goes in, there will be a structure that will apply to all markets in Kaduna moving forward?
Yes. So as much as possible, we have prototype designs. We also want to use red bricks as much as we can, burnt bricks as much as we can because of fires. So you'll notice in Kaduna State, we haven't been in the news for fire incidents in our markets. Some of the things we have done is decongest the market, so make sure there aren't shanties in the middle of the market. We've also insured our markets and also insured the goods of the traders as well. But yes, we're trying to provide...
Insure all goods of the traders?
Yes, so depending on the size of your shop, there's a value that has been ascribed. So if it's a 2x2, there's a value that has been ascribed. If it's a 4x4, there's a value that has been ascribed, so that in case of a fire, there's a claim. But we're also trying to, like you said, provide standardized markets.
So we facilitates the claim, just in case there's...
Yes, so we have mixed-use markets, which are your standard markets, where you have a wet market, a dry market for provisions. We have specialized markets like the GSM markets. We also have grains markets, which are responding to other kinds of development. So, of course, with the investment from Olam, you now have some kind of grains trade that has emerged along the sides of the road, and you have trailer parks going, packing discriminately. So we're trying to respond to all of those issues. We have things like cattle markets in our pipeline. We have poultry markets.
I was going to ask
Before you go there, let me just follow up on the transfer of ownership thing to the traders. So how many traders would you say that have been empowered now such that they can now say that they own their shops?
Tens of thousands, actually. So just 2 weeks ago, His Excellency presented deeds of sublease to about 25, which was just a random sample. But in Shegumi market alone, we have 4,000 traders that have already successfully gone through this process. In Sabongari market in Zaria, you have another 3,000. In Kaswambachi, you have another 3,000. In Kawu, you have 3,000. And Bernal market, you have about 700. So depending on the size of the market, but really tens of thousands of traders are benefiting from this.
Just to be clear, how many markets are we talking about here?
So right now, we have about 23 markets in different...
With a population of how many people?
So we have a population of about 10 million. So that's not even enough markets that we're building.
And this empowerment cuts across the different senatorial districts of Kaduna, even in southern Kaduna?
Yes, of course.
Now, to the cattle thing that I wanted to talk about, yes. The livestock, bit of it. First of all, what's the size of the livestock market in Kaduna State, if you can put a figure to it?
So I can't put a figure to that right now, but we think it's significant enough to be investing as much as 10 billion naira, for instance, because we have the Damal household milk farm, which the state government is investing about 15.5 billion naira in that ranch. And then we also have our private sector partner, ALA, the producers of Dano milk, who have already invested about $14 million to build a 400-hectare demonstration farm, which we're going to use to teach farmers, and which are usually like nomadic grazers, really, how to sanitize their milk production and how to maximize their milk production as well.
So what is there's a big project I think the state is working on, the Galaxy Mall.
Yes.
How does it connect to all of this?
So Galaxy Mall is our way to reach different sectors of society. So a lot of times when you're talking about markets, you're talking about there's a particular demographic who is going to be a tenant or an owner of a shop in the market. But then there's also people who are desiring of a different kind of shopping experience. And I think His Excellency is really trying to cater to all of those people, all of those different sectors. But also primarily, I think the urban renewal agenda is to make Kaduna a destination for people to live, work, and play, right? And so we need all those different aspects of recreation. So for the Galaxy Mall is an 11,000 square meter space with about 8,000 square meters of lettable spaces. We have a cinema with 3 screening rooms. We have 60 line shops. We have 6 restaurants. We have parking bays for over 400 vehicles. We also have alternative power supply, so we're exploring gas and solar as well. So it's right there in the middle of the city, and I think it's also another way for us to collaborate effectively with the private sector, so that we show them the way, we hold their hand through the process, right? But it's also a way for us to put our money where our mouth is and say, we have invested in this, and so come and join us.
Is the cattle market, which you're speaking about, also going to feature in this?
Yes, so that's far away, all the way in Damo. It's about 4 hours away from here. But for KADINVEST, we have an augmented reality experience where people can actually go and see what the farm layouts will be like. I'm really excited about the Damo project because it's not just about job creation and wealth creation, it's also about conflict resolution, right? And taking a very business-minded approach to this issue of headers and farmers. And I think it's significantly different from the federal government's livestock transformation program, because this is a business. So we're developing a cattle farm. We're developing a
tell us more.
This has not been commissioned, has it?
No, it hasn't been commissioned.
So what are the prospects for the Damal Cattle Ranch? Are you also in talks with the Cattle Breeders Association? Are they keying into it?
Oh yes, of course. So we always keep the end user in mind. So our partners are Dano Ala, the producers of Dano milk. We've also partnered with Mieti Ala, with Macban as well. And so we're empowering 1,000 households, right? Because the beneficiaries are not single people; they're households. So we're going to be able to accommodate 1,000 households. We're giving them improved breeds of cattle, Holsteins and Jerseys. We're also providing them with 2 hectares of farmland each, in addition to irrigated land, in addition to bridges and culverts and markets and primary healthcare centers and schools and veterinary clinics and milk collection centers and milking parlors and skills acquisition centers. Pretty much it's sitting on like about 9,000 hectares of land.
You know, one of the things that always comes to my own mind is sustainability.
Yes.
This government will exit before the next KADINVEST. And naturally the question on the mind of anyone would be, tell us about the sustainability plan. Okay. Investors that have invested or that will want to invest, what's the sustainability plan such that an intergovernment exchange does not change the systems that are in place and protection of their investments?
So I think we have different approaches to that. So first of all, Kaduna Market, as a state-owned enterprise, I have a mandate to be profitable. So we never really go into anything without being sure that it is viable. The Damao Household Milk Farm is actually going to be the largest dairy farm in West Africa when we're done. And Kaduna State itself can be classified as a dairy capital in Kaduna State. There's milk co-power, there's all kinds of dairy initiatives that have been coming along in this state for so long, and so we are actually just building on that. It's not like we're just setting the foundation, today. But I think also His Excellency Governor El-Rufai is famous for putting in place policies and structures that ensure that things are able to continue past this time, right? So it's not just saying that government is a continuum, but also putting those structures in place. And then when you bring in the private sector, that also helps to, protect things and ensure that they're sustainable.
Policy to change it,
Yes, but that's also why when we do things, we try to do them well, so that the project in itself becomes viable, becomes a proof of concept, and inspires the next administration to continue on.
So at least they all expect that no government will make it political and try to twist the people to look their way at the end of the day. So is that also being considered?
Yes. So what we're doing is replicating the cooperative system that you have in Europe. So these households are actually being formed into cooperatives where they are going to own the milk. They are going to pay back for the facilities that they received with the milk. So ultimately, when that loan is paid back, we pay Central Bank, they pay us, then the farm actually becomes theirs. They are in charge. They're a cooperative. They have larger bargaining power. We're giving them, financial literacy skills. We're giving them financial inclusion. We're also giving them access to market because Allah is there as guaranteed offtake for the milk. So we've thought about.
What measures are in place to ensure that all of those projects, the concept, the expenses, they don't take advantage of it by influencing or inflating the price of their products, because they could claim that we need to pay this and this as market people?
So that's why you have government in place, you have the cooperative model in place, but then you also have Allah in place, right? And then, of course, we have other kinds of federal government partners like the CBN, like NERSAL, like NIC, the Agriculture Insurance Council as well. So all of those stakeholders are in place. We've all sat together. There are also various agreements, right? So different parties have different agreements. There's an agreement between Kaduna Markets, Kaduna State Government, and Allah. There's an agreement between Allah and the cooperatives. There's an agreement between Yeti Allah. So everybody has their own obligations kind of spelled out, and there's a confirmed commitment to
sorry to take you back. I'm concerned about the cattle breeders, particularly because it's going to address conflict resolution. You say you're empowering 1,000 households, and you're partnering with MACBAN and the likes.
Yes.
So where are the members that will be beneficiaries? Where are they drawn from? Are you recalling them from different parts of the north, or the cattle breeders will benefit from it are domiciled in Kaduna?
They are in Kaduna, spread across 6 local governments. And remember, like I said, this what we're doing is actually repurposing one of the forest reserves in Kubau. So there's a lot of encroachment on the land already. And so for goodwill and to not displace them, we've taken 400 of the 1,000 beneficiaries from the settlement area, right? Because we're also trying to meet up with human rights standards and making sure that we don't displace people and making sure that there's also goodwill for the project. But we've also identified, local governments in the area like Sabongari, like Zaria, like Soba, where we have invited people to come and participate. So this was an open experience, an open application process. We advertised. There were a long list of commitments we were supposed to meet, such as, are you willing to move here? Are you willing to adopt new dairy production practices? We also set a target to have 30% women inclusion. And it was very interesting because we allowed women to apply as heads of their households. So that means in that one policy alone, we're able to take up, divorced women or women who are widowed and say, no, you can be a house, you can represent your own household. And so all of these people applied, and then they went through the process and were able to select 1,000.
I'm glad you mentioned inclusion, because I was going to ask you about that one. I know we're almost, time is almost out, but since you've spoken about the inclusion, so that one is out of the, talk about the feedback you've gotten from all of the beneficiaries so far to encourage others, to let them know that, look, Kaduna is working.
I think it goes back again to giving value. So no one can really argue against the value that they have received. And no one can really politicize the value that they have received. So in a lot of time that we have been doing this, we weren't always popular. People would say they want to take their shops away. People would refuse to show up to the verification process. But when they see one person has their deed of sublease, and then, everybody shows up at some point. So it's constantly like engaging with them, speaking the language that they understand, getting our partners, whether it is the banks, to sensitize them, and also giving them other benefits, like saying you have a residency card, which will then guarantee you access to social services in Kaduna. You have a business registration permit, you have a corporate affairs registration, and showing them the benefits of all of that. Because we also noticed whenever there's all of these federal government intervention programs, you find out that I think beneficiaries from the north are usually a few of them. And that's because a lot of people don't actually have all of this necessary documentation. And so we've been able to show them that, look, just because you now have this business, it means that you can benefit. But then also for the state government, it also means that in the future they are going to be taxpayers. So we always try to look at, the full view and the full value chain of what it is that we're doing.
Let me quickly get this one in.
Unfortunately, we need to go.
We'll get the opportunity.
Well, the governor will be here, so you could bring a lot of those other questions. Well, Taman Andil, MD Kaduna Markets, thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, well, back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Hafiz Bayero joins us next. He is the administrator of Kaduna Capital Territory Authority. Thank you for coming. Good morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
You know, you think about the FCT. So what is it with Kaduna Capital Territory Authority? How is that playing out in the scheme of things?
Well, as you're well aware, Kaduna is as a state, is a very highly urbanized state. We have 3 major cities of Zaria, Kafanchan and Kaduna, all with population of over 1 million. And about or more than 60% of our people actually live in these 3 cities. So the governor thought that for us to support the people that live in these cities, and we all know that by 2050, in fact, almost everyone will live in cities, it was very important to set up a city management structure that will be able to plan well ahead of time to deal with the stresses that will come with having so many people concentrated in one area.
So how is that coming on at the moment?
Well, as you are aware, the law was passed sometime in September last year. We were appointed, I think, in October, and since then we have gotten to work to try to establish these metropolitan authorities in Zaria, Kafanchan, and Kaduna. It has not been easy because it is a total rework of government structures. This is not how things used to be. But we're making significant progress, and we're beginning to address some of the issues that we were set up to do.
What are some of those issues? I asked that because, I mean, when you say that by 2050, almost everyone is going to be living in cities, it sounds to me like a massive urbanization program in the works. So what are some of these issues that have to be contended with?
Well, even before the setup of the metropolitan authorities, the governor had thought of this and commenced the well-known urban renewal program in Kaduna, and it just doesn't affect Kaduna City. It is ongoing in Zaria, and it is also ongoing in Kafanchan. So the goal of that program was to ensure that those 3 cities had adequate infrastructure to enable people live, work, and play, to enable businesses to thrive. Because then when you have a concentration of people in a particular location, you need jobs. Jobs are very important. You want to have a productive urban population, not just urban population that is scattered everywhere. So we started the urban renewal program first in Kaduna on 6th of June 2019, where we marked some roads, and these roads are actually part of the master plan. So it's also a rapid implementation of the Kaduna State Master Plan, which first came up in 1967 under the northern government led by General Hassan Usman Katsina. It was reviewed in 2010 under the administration of Governor Nomadi Sambo, His Excellency, the former Vice President. And it is currently undergoing another review because master plans are not permanent. They guide you, but you look at current realities every now and again to change. So most of these roads that we're doing and the road infrastructure like street lights, there are many components to it. There are markets, neighborhood centers, malls, parks, recreational centers, etc. All these things that are required, provision of public conveniences. Most times you see that open defecation is still a problem in this country, particularly in cities, and this should not be the case. But when you plan and you see that this is what you want to put in place, and then you begin to address them head-on, you begin to make progress.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to, the school of thought that, I mean, from what we've seen over time, infrastructure component of this is very huge, and most times you see government starts, they're not able to finish, some of them are abandoned. Is there any consideration for the private sector in this one?
Oh, without a doubt, almost everything. Kaduna is known for its involvement of the private sector. You just had the executive secretary of the Investment Promotion Agency spoke about a lot of the areas that we're focusing on, PPPs. Government doesn't have the money to do everything. There's a huge infrastructure gap, and then there's a huge funding gap. And this is just not common in Africa or in Nigeria. It is worldwide. So you have people, for example, build roads, and then they toll them and make their money back. There's another way of doing infrastructure for using PPPs. Most of our malls, neighborhood centers, markets, parks, etc., are actually built through PPPs, public-private partnerships. It is mostly the roads that we are building directly with government funds, and even those roads where we have flyovers, bridges, underpasses, we are beginning to have conversations around tolling them, because these are mostly express lanes, express routes where people can get to from one point to another faster. There are alternative routes, but because commuting is a problem, we need to get you from point A to B, from your house in the morning to your workplace Monday to Friday, or Monday to Thursday in Kaduna. We don't work on Fridays. And then on weekends, if you want to go out to visit friends or with your family, you should be able to. If you want to commute faster, you can use the express lanes, but at a cost.
Why don't you work on Fridays?
We have established the 4-day work week here in Kaduna last year, and since then we only work from Mondays to Thursdays.
You don't work on Saturdays?
No, we still come into work, because here in Kaduna, I think there's something wrong with a lot of us. We like coming to work. So even with the law passed saying that you work from Mondays to Thursdays, you come to work on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and you still see people in their offices.
Okay, so you talked about live, work, and play earlier, and I wonder what challenges you're encountering in that regard, because sometimes you find that developers want their patrons to live and work in the same place. So how are you ensuring that your developers comply with building rules such that you don't have those challenges?
Well, everyone, not just developers, would prefer to do that, and I think that is where we're heading to with the urbanization. That you are beginning to have mixed-use developments, where in one complex you can have residential areas, shopping areas, even schools and creches now. So people are able to drop off their kids right where they live to go to school. And of course, they wouldn't mind having their workplaces close by. It won't happen today, but I can see that happening in the maybe next 10 years. But this is where the goal of urbanization, to actually ensure that we are able to build our cities based on a neighborhood system, where in every neighborhood you have all the amenities that you require. You have hospitals or a clinic, you have shopping malls, you have hair salons for women, you have parks, you have all these things in one location. It means that you don't have to move very far, because transportation is expensive. It is also a problem for us in Kaduna, which we're addressing. We're about to commence the bus rapid transport system here in Kaduna, to ensure that people have efficient and affordable transportation system. A lot of people think that how to solve traffic issues is by building roads. No matter how many roads you build, as long as people buy cars to move from one point to another, because it is a necessity. You cannot stop people from moving from one point to another. Okay, but when you have a bus that can carry 100 people, it means that you are able to cut out over 20 vehicles from the road and replace them with that. We also have a light rail transport master plan, which we realized would cost about $1 billion, and we haven't dropped it off completely, but we're looking for private partners to come and establish the first line, like you are seeing in Lagos now. We have done all the feasibility studies. We put out a bid, and we had very strong people who came on board. Alstom, Bombardier, a lot of these major multinational companies came to Kaduna to put in a bid. However, we are still trying to structure the funding of how that will go. We believe that if we are able to have this bus rapid transport system put together with the light rail system, we would have solved a lot of our transportation problems, and at the same time reduced congestion and perhaps totally eliminate traffic, especially if we also focus on building communities and neighborhoods where there is everything that everybody needs where they live.
As you were speaking, almost every time you spoke, every question you asked was talking about a change process. And one of the most natural things is for people to resist change. So in what areas have you had pushbacks, and how has government responded?
Well, we've had pushbacks almost in everything, because governor is a radical reformer. We believe that people say, everyone knows what we need to do, but most people are afraid of taking the first step. So is that person that takes the first step and immediately follows up with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps right after. So of course that for some people is quite shocking that we are moving at that pace. In fact, a lot of people are shocked that when we say that we've done all these things in the last 3 years, people come to Kaduna, people that have not been to Kaduna in 2 years today cannot find their way around the city. Even at a point, for me, a resident of the city and now the administrator, going around the city during most of the construction, I still would wake up one morning, the same road I followed yesterday, I would try to follow it and I'd realize that work has started. So you'd have pushback from a lot of the residents because they are not used to this, and especially the pace at which it was done, and we are still doing. But they trust this government. This is one thing we've been able to do in the last 7 years, that in spite of all the radical changes, they trust this government because they see the results very quickly. And I think this is what governments all over the world need to do to gain the trust of their people. Even in our individual lives, we don't like changes every day. But this is something we have to contend with. The population is increasing. Here in Kaduna, we are nearing 4 million people in this city. The country is about 270 million. So we are going to increase in population, but we also need to keep up the pace in terms of providing infrastructure. And we must continue to sensitize our people that this is in their interest. And they also, on the other hand, must begin to see that all these things we are doing are producing results very quickly and support the government.
So is there like a timeline of what to expect when, as you progress? Because I mean, funding will be a key component of this.
Well, we're hoping that in the next 2 years we would have completed the BRT, and maybe in the next 3-4 years we would have completed the first line of the light rail transport from Marabarido to Kawu.
Does your urban renewal also, cover areas such that street trading will no longer be, something on the streets of Kaduna? And does it also cover, establishment of car parks within your shopping malls to deal with the problem of traffic?
Well, this is, for example, the car parks. All the new markets that we have, that we've rebuilt at the neighborhood centers and the malls have dedicated car parks. We have fire stations, we have clinics. It's the same thing, centralizing everything in one location. So if you are a trader and you come to your market, it's like your workplace, it is like your office. You finish from the market, whatever money you are able to make, you go to the bank street and deposit it. Because most people complain that on their way back home, people steal their stuff from their pockets. The governor is very, very interested in us building car parks. We are doing a lot of ground level car parks. The goal is to start doing multi-level. But as you are aware, it is also very costly. We're exploring PPP options, particularly within the central business district. Part of the plan is to totally pedestrianize that area, ensure that it is only for walking, and we build multi-story car parks a few hundred meters away where people are able to drop off their cars and then walk into the markets and businesses. And then when they finish, they go back to those parking lots, pick up their cars, and
that will be interesting. Very good picture indeed, but we're looking forward to see how that hits the ground and then eventually becomes a thing here. Hafiz Bayero, thank you for coming on, and all the best.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're back in a moment here at in Kaduna, where we're coming to you live. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're coming to you live from Kaduna, where KADINVEST 7.0 is holding, and yeah, you may be wondering why the big smile. Well, yes, we're joined by Madam Nasir El-Rufai, Governor of Kaduna State. He was trying to second guess where we're going on this one. Good morning and good to see you today.
Morning, Chamberlain. Good to see you.
Well,
welcome back to Kaduna.
Yeah, and it's the last KADINVEST that we'll be talking to you with, particularly as governor.
Yeah, we may have another one in April because usually we host KADINVEST in April.
Yeah.
But in 2020, because of COVID and the global lockdown, we took time to do it in September. So the calendar changed because of COVID. But we will discuss with the incoming governor. If he's amenable to it, we could have an 8th KADINVEST in April, just a month before we leave office. It is possible, because I think that will give us an opportunity to wrap up and see everything we've done in 8 years, and total and say in 8 years we're able to get these investments, we're able to do this, do that, and set up, a roadmap for the next administration. So it's possible, but this is likely to be my last KADINVEST.
Okay.
As governor.
And that will invoke mixed feelings, both on the part of investors, those who you work with, those who may want to do certain things moving forward. So it will be a tricky one. So for you, looking back, right, from the very first edition of KADINVEST, what sticks out for you from then till today?
Look, the whole idea behind KADINVEST arose from the recognition that, we have a very young population in Kaduna. The median age in Nigeria is 18. In Kaduna is even lower, it's 16 to 17. Very young population that need jobs, and we recognize that the government cannot provide the jobs that are needed. So we must attract private sector investors that will set up factories, service businesses to absorb these young people. So we started that in a climate that was full of cynicism and concern. We didn't have the insecurity challenges we have now, but we had an environment that was unfriendly to business. So we deliberately went out of our way, not only to court investors, but to make it clear to them that we're going to make life easy for you. We took very clear steps to ensure that. And Kaduna moved from number 24 on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business rankings in 2014 to number 1 by 2018, all due to the effort of some of the young people you've seen. So, our objective was just attract investments, create jobs. And I think we've done that pretty well. But along the lines, we also realized that, we can also specialize. We can make Kaduna the technology hub of northern Nigeria, if not Nigeria. And in a matter of 2-3 years, we have seen Kaduna become perhaps the second most innovative center after Lagos. Abuja is claiming to be second, but we think we are second. With CAD ICT Hub, with Core Lab, with CADA Hive, we've done a lot in the area of developing information technology expertise. And our CAD ICT Hub is recognized as one of the leading centers for blockchain technology innovation, for instance. And we have many young people that have graduated from our hubs that are making tens of thousands of dollars every month. Our concern now is how to find a way to tax them. But the fact that people have jobs is what is satisfying for us. Of course, our progress, in my view, has been disrupted by the banditry that spilled out from the forest into urban areas, onto the Kaduna-Abuja train and the airport. But we are still pushing hard. And I think on the whole, we have done the best we can in the circumstances. And we hope that our successors will build on it.
Well, I'm happy that you mentioned innovation. because that's something a sizable number of people have been talking about in this country for decades, and I mean for decades. For a state government to be taking the lead in that one is quite cheering. So when you say that the government was trying to set up Kaduna State as the technology destination in Nigeria, I'm wondering at what point that started concerning, find a way to link it to KADINVEST, because we played just before we came on the KADINVEST themes over the years. 2016 was Kaduna is open for business. I'm suspecting that every year Kaduna is still open for business, but in various areas. But it was only.
But that was our first outing.
Yes.
So we had to say, forget the hostility of the previous government, and the attitude of the other party.
We'll talk about the politics. I know you're excited.
I know that.
But it was in 2020 that innovation really began to be a thing that you talked about.
Yes.
So in infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, last year was towards a sustainable, knowledge-based economy. We'll talk about the resilient economy part of this year's zone, but at what essentially necessitated it? Because there are those who will be wondering, hey, it's Kaduna State. It's in northern Nigeria. What gave you the thought that this is something, there's a potential here for technology?
Look, we have studied Silicon Valley far back as 20 years ago when I was Minister of FCT. And we set up the first technology village in Nigeria when I was Minister, the Abuja Technology Village. So we already have a very clear idea about how Silicon Valley evolved. And we went to Bangalore and studied what they did, and we tried to replicate it in Abuja. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it up to a point of irreversibility, and you know what happened after I left the FCT. That project is still going on 20 years after. It's still not fully realized. And before I left, I had got commitments from HP, Microsoft, Dell, and many technology giants to locate in the Abuja Technology Village. So what we tried to do here in Kaduna was to look, initially we didn't think that we would start with a technology village. But an opportunity came when Zenith Bank decided they want to donate a building to us. They said, tell us what you want, we'll build for you. And we gave them a piece of land, and they built a very nice facility that we felt would be ideal for outsourcing company. So we got Nigeria's largest outsourcing company was based in Kano. They were facing hostilities in Kano. We relocated them to Kaduna. This outsourcing company is led by a lady, Amal Hassan, and they provide services to many foreign organizations. They teach Nigerians to have American accent, British accent, and so on, depending on the customer. And she has, about 3,000 people working for her here in Kaduna, working 24-hour shifts. So that was the building that we started with, and we had outsourcing. We had a group that was doing research in blockchain and so on, and we gave them the building free of rent for 5 years. Then they started attracting others, and one of the conditions for the emergence of technology hubs is the existence of universities. We have several universities in Kaduna State. We have more than 20 tertiary institutions, from Ahmadu Bello, NDA, Kaduna State University, Kaduna Polytechnic, many, federal and state and private. We have about 10 just around Kaduna. And many of them offer engineering, all types of engineering and computer studies. And so they started coming there, and then the UN, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, gave us a grant to develop a data laboratory, because data quality is a major issue in Nigeria, and we linked that to the Kaduna ICT Hub. And more talent started coming. And then we realized that, there is an opportunity really to scale this up. And we identified a large piece of land, 7 hectares, and in partnership with Core Lab and Talent City based in Lagos, we tried to create an entire Kaduna Technology Village. And we built it. and just gave it to the private sector. We don't, we've realized in this country, anything that the government tries to lead doesn't work. If you want to get the maximum capability of young people in Nigeria, create the environment and step back.
If I could just follow up on that quickly. Now, looking through from the first KADINVEST up until now, and then extrapolated to the entire country.
Yes.
Have we gotten to the stage where we can say, look, the private sector needs to actually, grow and take their pride of place? Because, I mean, the very first KADINVEST, if I remember properly, I think one of the statements there was that the private sector investment is the best vehicle for employment.
Yes.
And so now, what do we need to do to get to that stage where politics or policies over there will not affect or be an impediment to private sector growth in the country?
Look, in my honest view, the role of government is that of an enabler, facilitator, and dispute resolver. Okay, so if you look at Nigeria, the fastest sectors of growth and employment in Nigeria today are sectors where the government has ignored or inadvertently did not get involved in. Entertainment, Nollywood, our music is global, Our young people are creating unicorns, the flutter waves of this world and so on. These are areas that the government has not understood enough to go and regulate and mess up, okay? And I believe that our role as Kaduna State government in an area that we want to develop like ICT is to look at the constraints. Okay, these people need a workspace, they need fiber optic connections, they need this. We provide that. And we say, look, it's free. Okay, go ahead, create the jobs, make money, we'll tax you when we can. So far, we've not been successful in doing that, but I think future governments will find a way. And we've seen these sectors boom. Any sector that the federal government in particular, tries to get in, gets messed up.
But isn't that a problem?
It is a problem.
Allow me to ask it as a question. Because when you say government, the image in the mind of the average investor, especially the small businesses, is that of some draconian Dracula somewhere.
Difficulties, bureaucracy, corruption. That's the picture of government. At the end of the day, and it should be the exact opposite.
Exactly. At the end of the day, what I always say to my colleagues, let's decrypt government. It's just one individual. Just one individual somewhere goes to misrepresent the ideas or ideals of government and says, do this, and before you know what is happening, everyone is mentioning government.
Yeah.
So how do we demystify these individuals that mess up the name of government and don't allow the progress that government successively wants to work?
Okay, look, I think there are three issues and we must separate them, okay? Sometimes governments make good policies and the officials mess it up. Sometimes governments make bad policies so that whether those policies are implemented well or not, they mess up the environment anyway. And often the quality of leadership in government, determines whether good policies or bad policies ever get executed. In my view, these are the three issues we have to look at. Now, in a country like Nigeria, where the public service quality is weak, it can be significantly improved. I think any area that the government can just get out of, okay, it should. Okay, while we are scaling up the quality of public servants, train them, bring them up to 21st century skill sets and mentality, and understanding that, the main role of government is servant of the people. That's why it's called public service, not masters of the people. Okay, because we inherited government from colonial masters, we still behave as if government is master of the people. It is the exact opposite. I think one of the things we've tried to do in Kaduna is to change that thinking, to say that, look, your job is to help investors, is to resolve their problems, is to debottleneck whatever hurdles they face, so that they will put in their money so that we have these jobs. Okay? Many people in government at various levels don't understand this. Okay? So it's important to do that. We need good policies. Often the policies are not so well thought out. We also need leadership. We need quality leadership that is focused, that will ask every day, how is this going? I mean, when we decided that we are going to focus on technological innovation, okay, it was not just KADIVEST. We brought all the agencies together that are involved in this. We had a round table and said, this is what we are going to do. And I call every week and say, how is this going? You know, because you have to push people. You have to, you know, keep digging and pushing and encouraging and cajoling. And where you find someone has missed the road, you sanction the person immediately. We live in a society where there are no sanctions. You know, there is no reward for good behavior. There are no sanctions for bad behavior. This is why we are where we are, particularly in government, where people think that they have protected jobs. You can't fire them. Guess what? Here in Kaduna, we fire people. Look at the guys you talk to. They are young, they are smart, they are driven, they want to achieve things. And they know that I have their back. They can do anything. I will take responsibility because I'm the one that got elected, and I will defend it. Even when they are wrong, I will say, yes, I told them to do it. They will do better next time. And this is why we're able to achieve something in Kaduna. You know, that mindset is changing, even among the public service. And you can talk to our investors. They will tell you good stories about how, you know, our officials are friendly, they are nice, they do this, they never ask for a penny. And even after we get an investor to invest, we don't just ignore him. You know, they have something that this young man, Khalil, introduced called aftercare service. That from time to time, they go to the investor and say, look, how are you doing? Any problems? What can we do? Is it, are you having problems with the water corporation? Are you having problems with power? You know, what can we do? And, you know, they keep engaging. And this is what governments should do. This country is too big. Our population is too high. Our youth unemployment rate of over 50% is unacceptable. That governments must make creation of jobs the most important economic policy item. And we've tried to do this in Kaduna, and I think to some extent we've succeeded. So you know, we need to do this nationally.
Just a quick one, I know Bukola has a question for you. When you said earlier that any sector in which government can get out of the way, they should.
Yes.
What sectors would you suggest?
Look, let me begin with an example for those that are more than 20 years old. We used to have a company called Nitel, which got $7 billion in investments over the years to give Nigeria 400,000 telephone lines. Those of you that are old enough remember that. It's the most expensive phone system in the world, and it made many people rich. Siemens, ITT, you know, there are people that even ran for president because they made money from telecoms, like late Chief M.K.O. Abiola. But we had the worst phone system in the world. In 2001, okay, against all odds of national security, this and that, we got out of telecoms. We licensed, we raised $1 billion in license fees. We brought in the likes of MTN and Econet, and we decided to sell Nitel itself. What is the result? The result is what you're seeing today. You are only able to do this because of the investments in telecoms infrastructure that happened in the last 20 years. And all of it was private. All of it till today. So that's what I mean. And I'm giving this example so that when I say the government should get out of oil and gas, people shouldn't think it's crazy. It is not. There is no reason why the Nigerian government should still be in the oil and gas sector. It should just get out. It has failed. By every measure, it has failed. This year, NNPC has not brought 20,000 naira to the Federation account. Okay? We are living on taxes. It is PPT, royalties, and income tax and VAT that is keeping this country going. Because NNPC claims that subsidy has taken all the oil revenues.
You don't believe that?
I don't believe it. Okay? But this is what they say. Okay, so the government should sell everything in the oil and gas sector. I have been making this point since 1999 when I was head of BPE, and I have not changed my position. The government should get out of whatever is left in electricity, leave it to the private sector, create the environment, the money will come. We did that in telecoms.
What about this commercialization, Your Excellency?
Commercialization of?
The new NNPC Limited, it's not going to work?
What has changed? Nothing has changed. It's just a change in name with limited at the end. And the fact that now, maybe their accounts will be audited faster and so on and so forth. But nothing has changed. They are still taking our money. They are still declaring profits that we don't see the dividends. And NNPC is a big problem for Nigeria, and unless we resolve it, it will bring Nigeria to its knees. I have said this 5 years ago, and it has not changed, even with Melekari, who is trying to do well. But it's a systemic and institutional problem. It's beyond one person.
All right, so we'll go to break, but we'll return in just a moment and take you through, well, you never can tell what area we will be covering. Yes, we're talking about KADINVEST, but we'll be right back.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back. It's still Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. We're reaching you live from Kaduna State. Yes, it's Kaduna KADINVEST 7.0, the 7th edition of that summit that showcases the economic potential of Kaduna State and the progress made so far. We have His Excellency Governor Nasir El-Rufai with us. Your Excellency, for me, it's, yes, KADINVEST shows what's possible in Kaduna State so far. But when you say you've done your best where security is concerned, I wonder if that is resignation, because there's, let me articulate the question. There's a whole lot of potential beyond the farmers selling what they can to the off-takers. There's the technological expertise that has been developed that you just talked about. So there's a whole lot. They can increase their capacity, but where security is concerned, they're limited. For instance, when we were coming, someone was saying that, the crisis on Cotton Carfe, where they've been unable to pass and go down to the other states because of the flooding. Somebody was saying that Breningwari is a shorter route down to Lagos. So when you say you've done your best where security is concerned, is it resignation, or what else can be done to open up Kaduna such that Kaduna can be accessed via train, via the roads, and there can be more flight options so that these potential can be exported to the outside world?
I don't know whether it is resignation or frustration or both. It's certainly not abdication, because as a state government, we've done all we can to make our state secure. We've spent billions of naira. In fact, we're adding up the numbers now because, we want to approach the president and say that, we need some of these expenses to be reimbursed to us. Why? Because defense and security are completely the responsibility of the federal government. Nigeria is the only federation in the world with one centralized police. We've argued for years against that. We've asked for devolution. We've asked for amendment to the Constitution to have federal police like the FBI, then state police, then even local government police. But that has not happened. So
why is that the case?
We have police. We have police commissioner. But frankly, the police commissioner can refuse to carry out any orders I give him as governor unless the IG says it's okay to do it. All right? I'm not saying I've given any orders and they have not been complied with, but I'm saying generically this is how things work. Okay? We need to do something about that. I have no control over something as simple as policing. Okay? The issue of how many policemen we have and the fact that we don't have inadequate security footprint is another issue. We have 300,000 policemen. When we came into office, we had 13,000 policemen in Kaduna. We needed 20,000, but we had 13. Now it's down to 11,000. Okay, so even the simplest, the first line of law enforcement police, is inadequate, it's not under the control of the state governments. So when people say state governors are chief security officers, it is just a cliche, 3 words in the Constitution, but not in reality. Secondly, the levels of insecurity have gone beyond simple insecurity to terrorism. These bandits, I have argued for years, are terrorists. The fact that they don't have command and control, like Boko Haram, does not mean they are not terrorists. Because when we try to classify them as terrorists, people reminded us that they're just gangs. They don't have one leader. They don't have a shekau. Okay? That's someone's definition of a terrorist. My definition is any organization that challenges the sovereignty of the state. It's a terrorist organization.
They don't have to have a shekau.
Precisely. But, the international definition of terrorists is an organized group with an ideology, with its command and control and so on. So we couldn't get past that. Now, once you have terrorists, you need the military. Okay? In our own case, with the inadequacy of the police, even what the police could have done, we bring in the military anyway. Who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces? The president. Okay? We have one div here, we have garrison commanders. I can't tell them what to do. I can, but they can just say, yes, sir, salute, and walk away and refuse to do anything.
So what do you need that hasn't been provided for by the federal government?
Well, look, I have said many times in the last 2-3 years that, in my view, what was needed even then is an offensive against the bandits. We should not adopt a defensive strategy in which when they attack and kidnap people, then we start chasing them. All right? We should map them, and we know where they are, okay? And just wipe out all of them. Just bomb them. Kill everyone. Yes, some innocent victims that have been kidnapped, that are in custody, may die, but that's collateral damage is allowed in war. Okay? I'm not being hard, I'm just saying that you have to choose between 2 evils. And for me, wiping out the bandits, letting them know that you will die, it's a matter of days or weeks, okay, is a better deterrent than waiting for them to reform. They will never reform. They make so much money. This thing has become an industry that, sooner or later, everyone will get onto it. And this is what we've seen happening. So we were totally helpless. We've made representations, we've shouted, we have written, nothing. But I'm happy to say that in the last 6 weeks, there has been a change because, the military has now deployed special forces here, and they are taking the bandits out. The Air Force is bombing them. All the things that we asked for 3 years ago is now happening. Now, if that had been done 3 years ago, we would be in a completely different environment because 3 years ago, they were much fewer in numbers. We knew the camps, we knew everything. We know everything about them. We listen to their conversations. Okay?
What about the option of local security networks, which your colleagues have begun to adopt in some states of the north, Zamfara, Benue?
We have them, but look, those local security networks can only provide maybe local intelligence. They do not have the firepower to face these guys. These guys sometimes even rout the military. So, people are talking simplistically when they say, oh, I want to get AK-47 for my Amotekun. You don't know what you're dealing with. We know. These guys are very well armed. These guys are getting arms that are sophisticated, that flew into the Sahel when Gaddafi's government collapsed. They have sophisticated weapons. Sometimes they outgun the military. So those vigilance service, those local security networks are not up to scratch.
Well, before we go on to the next questions on KADINVEST and what people should expect, I mean, you mentioned this in passing, so just wanted to find out, because when we opened, the northern and southern governors appear to be on the same page now on state police. So the natural question is, I mean, their representatives are all in the states, they talk to the governors. What's the impediment now?
Well, the impediment is that There are people in Abuja that think a centralized police should continue. However, the National Assembly will look at this after they pass the budget, because we have met as Nigerian Governors Forum, we've met as Progressive Governors Forum, and we have asked our representatives in the National Assembly to begin the process of getting this constitutional amendment through. I'm also happy to say that a senator from this state, Senator Obasani, had already presented a bill to amend the constitution to allow for state policing and restructure the Police Service Commission and so on and so forth, so that you have national policing standards, but each state will have its own police in addition to the federal police. And the target is for us to have a total of 2 million policemen in Nigeria, federal and state. And the bill had passed first reading, I think, or second reading? No, first reading. And I think we've asked him to go back, take it through second reading and refer to committee, so that we can have the amendments to the Constitution on that, as well as 1 or 2 other issues to be brought back before the State Houses of Assembly take all the amendments and pass them. So we've agreed as governors to do that, and we hope it will be done soon.
I know that in KADINVEST, you've told investors that, look, don't worry, this will continue after I'm off as governor, and then, which is the natural question that everybody asks. And it's not just about Kaduna State investment, it's about across the country. Transition, it's always a big component. Even in private sector, continuity, it's always a huge component to success or failure.
Yeah.
But when you say that, well, my successor, and then you name, or maybe the person comes from your party, what assurance, how do they receive that? Because they know that there's a democratic process. We have to go through elections.
Yeah.
It may or may not be him.
Yeah. Well, look, no one can give any guarantees about the future. Only God, okay? For those of us that believe in God. Not everyone does. But based on what I have seen in many states and even at the federal level about transitions, I believe that every leader, every manager in any position should work on his succession from day one. This is what I was told in my first MBA class. You know, the moment you are a manager, start training your successors. You know, you should get yourself unemployed as quickly as possible. So train successors, 2, 3, 4, you know, because some will fall by the wayside. And this is what we've tried to do in Kaduna. The person that won the primaries in our party to succeed me was part of our original team. He was part of crafting the restoration program. He was part of KADINVEST. He was my political advisor in our first term, and he's now a senator during our second term. And we are one state that has maintained a unique relationship with our representatives in the National Assembly. I meet with them regularly. It used to be monthly before COVID, but I meet with them and we brief them on our own policies. So they're fully in the picture of what's happening in Kaduna. And we also coordinate with them as to what federal assistance we need regarding their constituency projects. You know, for instance, we told them, please, no more primary health centers. We have enough of them. What we need is to equip and staff the primary health centers. We have over 1,000 of them. So don't go and build primary health centers. Don't go and be building classrooms in the middle of the bush. Let us have bigger schools. Let's have boarding schools so that, you know, so we coordinate with our National Assembly members. And across party lines, I meet with all of them from time to time. So they know what we are doing, we know what they are doing, and we have excellent relations. So what we tried to do during our primaries process was to ensure that no outsider of our initial team, the inner circle, gets the ticket to run for governorship under APC, and we succeeded. The 3 front runners were all insiders. Okay, they have been in the government from 2014. We campaigned together, we crafted the manifesto together. So I have confidence there will be reasonable degree of continuity. And I assure you that if Senator Obasani, let's not say if, when Senator Obasani wins, by the grace of God, many of the young people you see here, you will see them at next year's KADINVEST, because some of them were brought here by him. We were part of an initial team. Of course, you know, Hafiz, Tama, they were young people then. They were technical assistants, special assistants, but they have grown over time. Khalil was a youth corper. He just came in as a youth corper. He was so good, we kept him. He is now the youngest head of parastatal in Kaduna State. He's 29 now, and he's been on the job 2 years. So most of these young people will be kept. They will continue. So there will be continuity in personnel, which leads to continuity in policy direction. So I'm reasonably confident that our investors will not see much change in direction. In fact, they will see improvement, because most of us, the old guys at the top, will leave, and Uba will bring even younger people, or elevate the younger people to higher positions.
Pardon me, is that going to affect the 84 megawatt gas power plant which you spoke about? What's happening with that?
The 84 megawatt gas power plant will be completed before we leave office.
Oh, okay.
The 100 megawatt solar power plant is also likely to be completed before we leave office. What may not be completed is the state transmission network. We are building our own transmission network. We are tired of national grid collapsing. So we want to take ourselves off the national grid if we can. We'll build our own state transmission network. We haven't decided whether we'll do it at 132 kVA or 66 kVA. Both can work. But with Kudenda, the federal government's 215 megawatts, our 84 megawatts, that's 300 megawatts, and 100 megawatts solar, I think we'll be able to get twice more power than Kaduna State gets now from TCN.
So the law allows you to build that?
The law allows us to build that.
Okay.
You know, the Constitution allows us to do that. With the Constitution amendment that has already been passed by the National Assembly, it will even strengthen the states more to be independent of TCN and the federal government. Now, and this is important, because Nigeria's power problems can never be solved by the federal government alone.
Well, you already said
this is one area.
You already said
yeah,
that earlier, the private sector.
This is one area where the private sector needs to get in. The states have to do their bit. Okay. And with new technologies offering renewables and off-grid solutions, I think it is time for us to stop thinking of large hydro and large gas plants and move towards off-grid solutions.
But Your Excellency, we had this conversation with you in 2019, and I can't but bring it up. You are exiting government in another few months, so to speak. You said then, when we asked you, what do you want to be remembered for, if you remember that conversation? And you said, as governor of Kaduna State, and I quote, what matters to me the most is education and healthcare. Remembered as the one that tries to restore the quality of public education, which is what I got.
Yes.
In your opinion, how far would you assess yourself to have gone with that?
Well, look, we have invested significantly in education. Every year, at least 25% of our budget goes to education. Are the results evident? No. There, you can say, people talk about improvements. Children now speak English and all that, primary school, secondary school, and so on. But investments in education take a generation. So it is 30 years from now that the products of our reforms will come to life. So that is still an open question. Has our ranking in WAEC improved? No, it has remained almost the same. We are 12th. And a lot of the improvement is in our public schools. The private schools have remained where they are. The public schools have moved out a little bit. So the jury is still out on that. Healthcare, yes, we have got some indices of infant and maternal mortality improved. But again, you know, the major areas where I wanted to see change was to have, you know, a large number of Kaduna State citizens on health insurance. We have less than 1 million. Meanwhile, we have registered nearly 6 million residents. I want all the 6 million residents to be on health insurance so that when they go to a hospital, they don't become broke overnight. We have not made a lot of progress on that. But, you know, for me, governance is a work in progress. you lay foundations, you try to change the direction and attitudes of people and hope that your successor will keep in that direction. 8 years is too short to really show significant improvements in many areas. What we have tried to do, as I said, is to be enablers. You know, let's provide infrastructure. Let's provide what people need to feel safe and secure. Let us reduce the weaponization of religion and ethnicity so that people will look at each other and work as human beings rather than as Muslim, Christian, Northern Kaduna, Southern Kaduna, and all that. And ultimately, I think you improve governance, you improve society by waking up every day and making sure that today works well, you know, better than yesterday, and tomorrow will be better than today. That's what we've tried to do. I don't know, I'm not sure now what I want to be remembered for, but if there is one thing that matters a lot to me, it is that we have removed the sense of entitlement among politicians to government resources in Kaduna State. We used to have a government that just distributes money and does very little. We have changed that perception, even among politicians. Nobody expects, you know, to get money from us. Nobody expects this. If you ask, we'll tell you, go out, the roads are there, the schools are working, the primary, you know. It was not popular, and many people predicted that I will not win elections, but I got elected twice. And this change in attitude, this clear difference between night and day, between the previous government of the other party for 16 years and what we've been able to do in 8 years in very difficult, resource-constrained circumstances, you know, for me is the most important thing we've done in Kaduna State. We have broken many glass ceilings. We have got the first woman elected in the Muslim part of northern Nigeria, elected as deputy governor, and she nearly got the ticket to be governor, but for some constraints, you know. We have a cabinet that has more women than men. It has never happened in the history of the state. Usually you have the talking commissioner of women affairs. We have brought a large number of young people that people thought are useless, but you can see for yourselves what they can do. And I tell you, a lot of the results we are talking about is their effort. You know, there has been a lot of flooding, for instance, in most states in the north. No flooding in Kaduna.
Well,
okay. Why? Somebody thought we should dredge River Kaduna because it was a major source of flooding. This young guy called Hafiz Bayero, we spent a few million to dredge the river. We've not had floods. So this is what I want. This is it. And Tamar is not from Kaduna originally. She's from Plateau State. Khalil is not originally from Kaduna. His state of origin is Katsina, but he was born and grew up here. We have taken every Nigerian to be equal in this state. We have broken certain mindsets about ethnicity and religion. And honestly, for me, this is what I would want to be remembered for, because the other things will take much longer to begin to show.
Well, at this stage, we have to look forward to having another session with you.
Yes, indeed.
Because, I mean, even Mr. Moyo will agree with us.
Yes.
So, we have to thank you for coming on. So, KADINVEST, that is what you look out for, because all of those people who are working together in KADINVEST, there will be a session which will be coming on pretty soon. But we have to thank you for coming on. And all the best for KADINVEST 7.0. There may be 8.0.
8.0 under Governor El-Rufai.
You never know. You just never know.
In April.
So there you go.
Next year.
That is it with Sunrise. Okay, that's caveat. Well, Sunrise really came to you live from Kaduna State, where we're talking about KADINVEST 7.0. Thank you for watching. I am Chamberlain Uso.
Indeed, thank you for sharing your day with us. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Stick with KADINVEST 7.0 and Channels Television. I am Akine. Have a wonderful day.